Coming to you from deep inside the bowels of a great big empty. Get ready for another episode of The Home Defense Show with Skip Coryell.
Hello, American families. Welcome to this week's episode of the Home Defense Show. I'm your host, Skip Coryell. And if you love your family, care about them deeply, and want to learn how to protect them in every facet of your life, then you've come to the right place. We got a great show for you today, folks. I am excited. I am very excited about today's show. Why? Because I am excited about the opening day of archery deer season, because I'm going to be out there probably an hour before daylight. Who knows? It might be hot. It might be cold. There could be mosquitoes all around me. Or I could have snow on my eyelashes. We just never know here in Michigan. But it's going to be fun, and I got to tell you, every year I work my butt off all summer long, bringing in firewood and canning food and growing food and, writing novels and doing all the stuff that I do, teaching classes out on the gun range. But then in the fall, I try to take some time off from all of that so I can go out into the woods, climb up 25 feet into a tree where no one else can get me, and I just sit there and I relax and I untie all of the knots in my stomach. And then when a little cute, helpless, fuzzy, warm deer walks up and stands there, I kill it with my trusty little crossbow. Oh man, I just love it. I just love it. And I got to tell you, it's been, probably 10 months since I killed a deer, and I'm getting that itch. I am getting that killing itch. And that's what we're going to be talking about in segments 2 and 3. We're going to be speaking with Jim Keller from the Big Buck Registry podcast. He's got a lot of good things to say. He's going to educate us. He is going to tell us all about the pregame forecast for Michigan. So if you're a Michigan listener, you're going to love that. We'll be talking about EHD and chronic wasting disease and, just the thrill of the hunt. So look forward to that because it's going to be some really good stuff. What have I been doing? Well, I'm almost done bringing in my firewood. I know I say that every single week. I'm almost done. I was out last night with my 12-year-old son, and we were getting a load of wood, and we were excited because we got 2 more truckloads, and that's all we need. I need 14, 15 pickup truckloads of wood to heat the house from like October through March up into April. Last year, we ran out in March, and I don't want that to happen again. So we're out there getting as much as we can before, the deer season starts, because you don't want to be out there pressuring the deer and pushing them off your property, with a chainsaw and a pickup truck. So we're out there, and I tried to get too close to the swamp where I was cutting these old dead ash trees, and man, I buried my pickup truck almost up to the axle. And it's really frustrating. You spend, 2 hours cutting wood, loading wood, and then 2 hours trying to get your truck out of the swamp. I should have known better, but I didn't. And, oh, man, I was kicking myself in the butt there for about 2 hours. Finally, my brother-in-law came down with his 4-wheel drive pickup truck, and he was able to pull my truck out of the swamp, fully loaded with wood. That was a bit of a chore there. But today, as soon as I'm done with the show here, I'm going to go out. I'm going to get another load of wood. And then hopefully that's the last one I'll have to get. We will wait and see. And then I can start practicing with my crossbow. So on October 1st, I can be out there waiting for, Bambi's dad or Bambi's mom and fill up the freezer. That's what I got to do. All right, well, we've got a lot of news here. All kinds of stuff in the news this week. Have you noticed that? Brett Kavanaugh, Supreme Court Justice nominee, getting raked over the coals. I mean, they're doing everything except, stripping him down naked, making him bend over, cough, and, checking out his cavity back there. It's just, is it really worth it? In my mind, it's not worth it. If you're doing this just for selfish personal gain, you're not going to do it because, my gosh, I mean, how bad does he need this job, right? I mean, he already had a good job, on the D.C. Court of Appeals. So, man, why would you want to do something like that? It's got to be patriotism. That's the only thing that could be driving Brett Kavanaugh in my mind, because they are doing everything that they can to this guy to destroy him. What do they call it? Borking him? Lean over and cough, bend over and cough because we're going to bork you now. Man, terrible, terrible stuff. Have you noticed that the far left is just going a little bit berserk these days? They are going crazy. I had an encounter with an extreme far left liberal just this past week, and I'll be telling you about that in segment 4 when I tell you what I really think. But for right now, let's go to a news article. I want to hit something local. I live in a low-crime neighborhood out in the country, but I've been telling you folks for months now that it's not safe out here as well. There are different levels of safety. But here, I'm at the police beat in my local paper, the Hastings Reminder. It says, "Man shot on Woodlawn roadside." A 31-year-old Potterville man called Berry County Sheriff's Department. Whenever I hear the word Potterville, I think of Henry F. Potter from It's a Wonderful Life. The Berry County Sheriff's Department dispatch at 3:30 p.m. August 16 to say he believed he had just been hit by a vehicle on Woodlawn Road west of Becker Road. He just believed it? How can you not know? I smell alcohol on this one. When emergency medical services personnel arrived on the scene, they found the victim had already applied makeshift tourniquet to a wound near his right shin. But EMS told the officer the wound was consistent with a gunshot with no exit wound. The victim eventually told authorities that he had been riding with a woman he purchases marijuana from. They argued, and he got out of the vehicle. Is that the kind of thing you want to admit to the police? But then if you're high on marijuana, you're probably going to be saying a lot of things that you normally wouldn't say. All right. He gave few details about the woman other than the fact that she is in her mid-20s and has a large chest. Officer, I have no idea what her face looks like, but she's got really nice hooters. Gosh. Boy, I'd love to see the artist rendering sketch of that one. No face, just his two big breasts right there. The victim was taken to Spectrum Butterworth Hospital where a bullet was removed from his leg. Okay. Beware of those women in their mid-20s with nice-looking breasts. Jeez, especially if they're trying to sell you marijuana. When the officer had initially interviewed the victim, he said a newer model burgundy Ford was being driven on the road near him when he felt a pain in his leg and fell down. He told police he did not know anyone in the Hastings area and did not know why anyone would shoot him. Now that is a mystery, is it not? Hey, anyone has information about that and you want to admit it? Go ahead and call the Berry County Sheriff's Office. Oh, woman 25 with nice looking breasts. Okay. Selling marijuana. Man, a lot of things happen in small towns that people don't even know anything about. I used to work court security right here in Berry County. And I tell you, geez, you see people come in that you would never guess would be in court for some of the most bizarre things. Small towns have their dirty little secrets, don't they? All right, what else do we have here? I kind of like this one right here. This one comes off of Fox News. The headline reads, Licensed gun owner aids Illinois cops in shootout with suspect, one officer injured. A licensed gun owner was hailed Thursday for his role in helping police in suburban Chicago stop a suspect who was firing an automatic weapon, officials said. Now, I got to tell you, that's one ballsy concealed carry holder taking on a man with an automatic weapon. Wow. Officials commended the unnamed civilian for his actions as they stood outside a hospital where Cicero police officer Luis Duarte, age 31, was undergoing surgery for 4 gunshot wounds suffered during the shootout. That was the police officer that was shot. Quote, we were lucky enough to have a citizen on the street there who has a concealed carry holder, and he's also engaged in gunfire, said Cicero Police Superintendent Jerry Collada Jr. You know what, that's ironic, because I know darn well the Chicago Police Department, at least the superintendent and the police chief, they are not friendly to concealed carry. The city of Chicago in general, their administration there, they hate concealed carry. They fought against it tooth and nail, and they finally accepted it simply because the Illinois State Supreme Court said you don't have a choice, you have to take it. You know, and they were extremely lucky that the man was there and that he was armed, because there are so many pistol-free zones in Illinois. Man, he's lucky that he could carry. You know, he was in his own car on the street. That's probably the only reason he had the gun, because if he'd had to go inside a building, good chance he would have had to leave the gun in the car. Well, hey, very brave man. The chaos erupted just after 5 p.m. when Duarte, a 4-year veteran of the police department, and his partner tried to pull over a vehicle in Cicero for a routine traffic stop. The driver instead took off onto a ramp leading to Interstate 55 in Chicago's city limits. The officers boxed the vehicle in traffic, and the suspect got out and began firing the automatic weapon at them as he fled on foot. The officers returned fire. The concealed carry owner then got out of his vehicle and began shooting at the suspect. Quote, he got out and started helping the police, which is something I've got to be proud of, Cicero Town President Larry Dominique told the Sun-Times. The suspect was hit once, but it was not clear if the bullet came from the officers or the concealed carry holder. Duarte suffered wounds to an arm, a leg, and his abdomen, but was talking and alert ahead of surgery, officials said. The suspect was taken to a hospital and listed in serious condition. His weapon was found at the scene. You know, this is like the same old story. It took a long time coming in Illinois simply because there are so many pistol-free zones there. It's hard to defend yourself. It's hard to defend anyone else because you've got to lock your gun up in your car almost everywhere you go. So, but this is good news. I mean, this same thing happened in Michigan. You know, 18 years ago, boy, most of the police organizations were against concealed carry. And they said, blood in the streets, blood in the streets. Every time there's a traffic stop, all police are going to die. Well, you know what? This officer Duarte, he's not singing that tune today, is he? Well, that's good. This is really good news, and it is predictable. When honest, law-abiding citizens carry firearms for personal defense, they have a tendency to protect other innocent people as well, even against automatic weapons. That is a good move. In the Home Defense Show, hey, we salute this unnamed concealed carry holder. All right, what else do we have here? Oh, here's a real bizarre one. Texas man admits, this is on bearingarms.com. Headline reads, Texas man admits to disposing of dismembered body, claims self-defense. Oh, I got to see how this one works. Thanks to rhetoric from anti-gunners and the media, a lot of people may have gotten the impression that claiming self-defense is a get-out-of-jail-free card when it comes to murder. After all, there's been plenty of talk about how self-defense laws and stand-your-ground laws give people permission to murder folks. So it's not surprising that some people might start to believe it. Yes, as if they're saying down in Florida, you know, Tallahassee with the Draca case, every time something like this happens, oh, it's stand your ground. That's why people are getting away with murder, and it's just not true. Maybe that's what happened when a Texas man murdered a Florida woman, then dismembered her body for disposal. Christopher Lee Takvar, a 43-year-old Texas man, was arrested for the murder of Florida native 63-year-old Robin Lee Upson. According to the Marion County, Florida Sheriff's Office, an investigation started when Upson's dismembered and decapitated remains were found in the Ocala National Forest in June 2018. Authorities later found out that Takvar, Robin's business partner and friend of about 20 years, with friends like this guy, who needs enemies, right? Had murdered her and dismembered and disposed of her body. On June 11, 2018, Sheriff's Office deputies were called to an area near the intersection of Northeast blah, 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 who cares, in the Ocala National Forest, in reference to human remains being found there by a hiker. When they got to the scene, deputies discovered a woman's torso, which was missing its head and appendages. Wow. Detective Aaron Levy traveled to Texas to interview Takvar, where he admitted to stealing the van and killing Robin, claiming it was done in self-defense. He also admitted to completely dismembering her body and disposing of Robin's torso in the Ocala National Forest. The irony here is it very well could have been self-defense. Let's say she came at him with a gun, so he pulled out his gun, shot her. But then afterwards, you're not supposed to cut up the body into tiny little pieces and bury them in a national forest. Important legal tip there, okay? Takvar, if you ever have to use a gun in self-defense again, don't cut up the body, cut off the head, and bury the body parts in a national forest. It's much easier and more legally beneficial if you just pick up the phone, dial 911, and report the incident to the police. This guy, I'm sure, my God, I hope this guy ends up in prison for the rest of his life. Actually, this is California. They have the death penalty. Maybe he'll get the death penalty. We will see. All right. Well, that is about all the time we have for this segment of the Home Defense Show. When we come back, we're going to be speaking with Jim Keller from Big Buck Registry. This is going to be our pregame hunting show for 2018 deer archery season right here in Michigan. We're going to talk all about the state of the deer herd here in Michigan, talk about chronic wasting disease, EHD, the volume of the herd, and just some flat-out good deer stories. So you got a 2-minute break here. Go ahead and check out bigbuckregistry.com, and you can see what they're all about. But then check out our sponsors, firearmslegal.com/Midwest Tactical, and also elitefirearms.us. All right, take a 2-minute break. When we get back, we will be checking out with Jim Keller from Big Buck Registry podcast. This is Skip Coryell on the Home Defense Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
My name is CJ Coryell. Welcome to the Home Defense Show with my dad, Skip Coryell. Don't go nowhere. We'll be right back.
This is Skip Coryell from the Home Defense Show, and I want you to have the very best handgun that money can buy. And that's why we recommend you visit Larry Jackson at Elite Firearms and Training. As a concealed carry instructor, I see people every week out on the range with guns they can't shoot properly because they didn't know what to buy. That will never happen at Elite Firearms and Training. Larry Jackson will personally fit you with your very own personal defense pistol. So call Larry Jackson today at 616-299-8715 or visit elitefirearms.us.
This is Colonel Danny Gillum. I host Frontlines of Freedom, a weekly syndicated military talk radio show. One of my co-hosts is Skip Coryell, the host of this show. We cover things that impact military and veteran communities, and we do it from the veteran's perspective. The show is broadcast across the nation and is also available as a podcast on our website, frontlinesoffreedom.com. Please join Skip and me weekly on Frontlines of Freedom.
Okay, folks, welcome back to the Home Defense Show. This is your host, Skip Coryell. We are speaking now with Jim Keller from Big Buck Registry. Jim, welcome to the Home Defense Show.
Thanks, Skip. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
All right, now, Jim, before we get too far into this deer hunting pregame show here, tell us about all things Jim Keller. Who are you, and what is Big Buck Registry? What should we know?
Well, born and raised primarily in West Michigan, not too far, I think, from where you hail. Lived here most of my life. I've lived in a few other states as well. Have been an avid hunter and fisherman from as far back as I can remember, and primarily hunting in this area, but I've done some trips out west and in northern Michigan, those kind of places. Settled here with my family, and a couple years ago got in touch with a couple other guys with similar interest, and one of them had gone so far as to start a podcast called the Big Buck Registry podcast, and was actually first a listener, and then got to know the guys, and we decided to create a trio, and it's a weekly podcast, although we in the off season we kind of go bi-weekly, where we interview different hunters, whether they're famous people that you might have seen on TV or just the guy next door to you who killed a big buck last year, and talk to them about kind of some of their techniques, what they find that works and doesn't work, some of their practices. Do they, are they use a lot of cover scent? Do they wash all their clothes in scent-free detergent? Do they do none of that and sit out in the stand and smoke a cigarette? Any of those kind of tricks and of the trades. And, it's done really well. We get about 1 million downloads a year. And that's just a lot of fun, actually.
Oh, that's fantastic. Guys who deer hunt, they're just fanatical about deer hunting. It's like no one who deer hunts is, just kind of laissez-faire about it. Especially, for bow hunters. You have to be serious about it, or you're probably not going to see a whole lot of deer out there. What type of hunting do you like to do?
I'm a pretty avid bow hunter. I, for a number of years, hunted with a compound bow, and just in the last year or so, primarily due to my schedule and not having the time to practice, switched over to a crossbow, but I still like to take my compound out on occasion. And then I will do definitely the regular gun season, at least in southwest Michigan, and then muzzle loading just as time permits. So I try and hit all those seasons. Do a little small game, that kind of stuff. But really, I think my primary passion is the bow hunting. It's just, to me, there's nothing better than being out there on those days with things quiet and the deer kind of going about their normal business. And, if nothing else, just watching them do what they do.
Oh, gosh, yeah, I know what you mean. It's like taking a sanity break. You just go out. Yeah, you'll have like a bad day at work, right? But, if the next day you're going bow hunting, it doesn't matter. They can, douse you with gas, set you on fire, hose you down, and fire you, the next day. But as long as you're going bow hunting, hey, it's all good. Go ahead, do whatever you want to me. Now you mentioned crossbow. That's what I shoot too. For just decades, I shot a compound bow, and I just loved it. But, there comes a point in every archery hunter's life where they eventually go to a crossbow, because there's just so many injuries that happen. This is my birthday show. I am 61 this week. And, if you get to a certain age and you're still hunting, you just can't pull back that 60, 65, 70-pound compound bow anymore and hold it while a buck is staring at you. And, the crossbow, it allows you to extend your time in the woods, probably by a couple of decades, I would guess.
Oh, I agree. And by the way, happy birthday.
Thanks.
I have had a couple of shoulder injuries, and oddly enough, they have not stopped me from being able to draw a compound. Mm-hmm. But for me, it just became a time thing, and I think that happens to everyone. And the rate things go for me now, I don't get the time to shoot, and would not feel ethical going out in the woods without practicing more than I have. I'm no Robin Hood, so I do need the practice. And with the compound, with the crossbow, it's not that I still don't practice, but it's more like a rifle. I take it off the shelf, I sling a few bolts through it, make sure that it's still lined up from last year, shoot from a couple elevated situations, shoot at a decoy just to kind of get that image in my mind. But in a day or two of shooting, I can be where I would be in weeks of shooting my compound as far as accuracy. And I don't stretch the limits. I probably don't shoot any farther with a crossbow than I do my compound. So it's I'm not taking risky shots or anything like that. I mean, most of the time in the woods, you're not going to get a clear shot much past 30 yards, at least where I hunt.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'm the same way. Typically, I like a 20 to 30 yard shot, even with my crossbow. It's capable of more, but how often do I'm hunting woods and swamps, so you can't, most of the time you can't see that far, or you don't have, there's branches between you and the deer. But Jim, how many times have you drawn on a deer? They like to come right before it's time for you to get out of your tree stand. And they walk up, and you can see them just fine. But then you pull up with your compound bow, and you look through the peep sight, and half of your daylight goes away. Ever happened to you?
Absolutely.
Oh, gosh.
Yes.
That is so
Many times.
frustrating. Because it's like...
It is.
I mean, you can see the deer plain as day until you look through the peep sight. With a crossbow... I don't have that problem. I pull up, I look in the scope, and hey, it looks better than it did before. So,
that scope gathers light just like your rifle.
Yeah, it's just nice. I mean, I can't remember the last time I wounded a deer, and that I didn't recover, with a crossbow. It just doesn't happen, for me. So that is really, really nice. It shoots flatter and faster, and and there's less movement. There's a lot of movement when you're pulling up and trying to draw a bow and arrow on a deer. So, you know what? People can say, you're taking the easy way out. You're such a sissy. But you know what? At 61 years old, I just say, shut the hell up. I'm 61 years old. I've earned a little vacation. And, hey, I'm 61. I'm 30 feet up in a tree, okay? And it's freezing to death. So, where are the other 61-year-olds? They're in the lazy boy recliner with a remote control. So I don't feel guilty about shooting my crossbow at all. So
I agree. We're all out there doing the same thing for the same reasons.
Well,
it's all a brotherhood, and we all need to stick together, because too many people out there that don't see it the way we see it, whether we're shooting a compound or a crossbow.
Yeah. Well, if it's legal and it's ethical and it's moral, you're making good shots, you're harvesting deer, how you do it, within those parameters, really, it's nobody else's business. So, geez,
I agree.
I don't rag on someone else because they're using a high-powered rifle. I don't care as long as it's legal. It's deer. It all tastes the same, and it's good. Opening day is coming up. Here, most of my listeners are in Michigan, and October 1 is it's like a sacred holiday for me. And boy, I just look forward to that so much. And but there are different phases to the hunting season. With archery, you've got October 1 right up through November 14, and there's different types of hunting. The season seems to change. Go ahead, talk about that a little bit, Jim.
Well, for me personally, I've noticed that all the bucks that show up in my daylight photos on my cameras all of a sudden go nocturnal. So, October 1st seems to be the day they start working nights.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I mean, those that first week or so, usually it's some warm weather. You have patterned the bucks probably at that point, one way or the other, whether it's monitoring them from afar, cameras, however you're doing it. So you have some idea maybe what's in the neighborhood. But then the bucks are kind of grouped together, so you might see still a little bit of a bachelor group, although they're probably starting to split up as well. So lots to watch, I find, in that early season. And, you might be fighting a few mosquitoes, but great weather, great times to be up in the air, and kind of fall is looming.
Yeah.
And then, everybody talks about the October lull that I think everybody believes is around the middle of the month. I can't, I've not really tracked it personally to say whether or not I feel that lull. I think, to me, it just depends a lot on the weather and some other factors. So if it's abnormally warm, probably I'm not going to see as many deer as if it's cooler. But I personally have not quite experienced an exact lull during that time. And actually, I've shot a lot of bucks during archery season about that middle of the month, middle of October.
Yeah.
From there, as it gets closer to Halloween, I really start to anticipate the changes and the bucks starting to move. And by now, they're obviously all separated and moving a lot more during daylight as those days get shorter. So I really look forward to anything from November 1st on. November 10th was always kind of a magical date for me. For a few years, got some really nice bucks on that exact date. So from there, it just gets better between there and the 14th. And, the rut's starting. They're moving a lot more. I'm also a gun hunter, so looking forward to that whole experience. But that's kind of how I break it down. There's that early season where it's warm. There's the middle of the month, which, depending on the weather, you might see them moving. You might not see them not moving as much. And then the rut starts where I'm out there every possible moment that I can be.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I like them all. I mean, I like opening day. That first 7 days, that's like an ambush, right? I mean, you get out there and these deer, if you've done your scouting properly, they don't know you're there yet. And, they're in their regular patterns and, they're just fat, dumb, and happy. Which makes me fat, dumb, and happy. And, so the first week, so I'll see a lot. But I'm just wondering, maybe when someone talks about the October lull, maybe part of it is the fact that the deer are sensing pressure. They're seeing a lot more people out into the woods. They may have you patterned. And so they move 50, 100 yards and you're not seeing them anymore. And you think it's a lull. And they're laughing from 100 yards over, giving you the finger. And you think there's anything to that theory?
Oh, I agree. It's just, I have the same theory with my cameras that I don't get a picture on this side of the tree, but what up the other side of the tree? And, don't you ever sit out there and just wonder if you could just fly or just lay down all the foliage just to see what's around you?
Yeah.
Because you know that they could be just on the other side of a hill or some brush and you won't even see them. And, I agree with you. I think they're sensing that movement. You've got things like duck season starting in there. Mm-hmm. You've got people that are out there. I think pheasant season starts somewhere there, those first couple of weeks of October. You've got some more movement out there, and you're right. They may just change their patterns a little bit. But you're in the right place at the right time. I guess that's all that matters.
Well, that's right. Yeah, your chances of getting a deer, go up exponentially when you're actually in your tree stand. Amazingly enough.
Exactly.
You talked a little bit about the rut. Oh gosh, I live for the rut. I love stupid bucks. And I guess a big buck, or about November 1st is kind of like a high school kid, 16, 17 years old, at the football game, watching cheerleaders. I mean, that's exactly the way that he is. I mean, it's like he's, half brain dead. And it's like, okay, yeah, I know I might die. I'm doing a really stupid thing, but I just don't seem to care right now for whatever reason. I just love shooting big, dumb bucks, the first 2 weeks in November. All the different, and it's exciting too, because, you'll hear them, fighting, or every once in a while you'll get to see them fighting. You'll see them on your trail cameras and, oh gosh, there's just, do you still get, obviously, you're a big buck hunter. I'm not. I've yet to shoot a really, really big buck. But every time a deer walks up to me, whether it's a big doe or a big buck, I just spaz out. I get buck fever. I get that adrenaline surge into my bloodstream. My heart rate goes up.
Too.
I still do it.
It's funny because I've noticed that I can sit there and have a few does come in and kind of meander around, and then I think, well, I do need to take some does, and so maybe here's one that is a good target. And as soon as I make that decision that I'm going to take a shot, I can be sitting there for 15 minutes watching them completely relaxed. But when I make that decision to shoot, it just changes everything. My heart rate picks up. The anticipation, now I'm afraid to move. It's just a whole different game once I make that decision. Yeah. And I've even tested it. I mean, I've said that to myself and really told myself I'm going to go to the point of drawing and then not shoot. And it doesn't have the same effect. It's only when I know that I'm going to shoot that I just get a little bit goofy. And I don't know if it's any worse with a big buck than a doe when I make that decision. It's I feel worse in the end if I mess it up. Mm-hmm. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know. It's why I'm out there. That feeling is just
it's
I don't
like
get it any other way.
Yeah, when it goes from being a deer to prey, and you're the predator. Boy, everything just changes.
Yeah.
It's like upping the ante. All of a sudden, you bet $10,000 that you're going to make this shot, and it adds a lot of pressure. But I think if I didn't have those jitters, that antsy, buck fever feeling, it wouldn't be as much fun for me. It wouldn't be as exciting.
I agree. I agree.
Well,
it's like that new roller coaster.
Oh gosh, yeah, you bet. Okay, folks, we are about out of time for this segment. Boy, time flies when you're talking about deer hunting, at least for me. We're going to take a 2-minute break. Go ahead and check out our sponsors. Go to firearmslegal.com/Midwest Tactical. Check that out. And then go to elitefirearms.us and see what Larry Jackson can do to get the right firearm for your family. When we come back, we're going to speak more with Jim Keller about the opening day of Michigan deer season and what exactly is the forecast there. So we're going to come back in 2 minutes. This is Skip Coryell on the Home Defense Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
This is Felix Coryell on the Home Defense Show. Always use guns safely and wisely. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey folks, I want to tell you about my book, Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book. More and more people across the country are seeing the dangers in society and are deciding to carry concealed to protect themselves and their families. My new book lays it out step by step. It'll teach you how to protect and defend the ones you love. Get the benefit of 17 years of teaching experience and a lifetime of training for this important role in society and in your family. You can get Civilian Combat real easy. Just go to Amazon.com, search on Skip Coryell Civilian Combat, and it'll pop right up there. Don't put it off any longer. Get Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book by yours truly, Skip Coryell.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if life was like the movies and the good guys always won? In today's world, if you're forced to use your firearm to protect yourself, you will need protection. Firearms Legal Protection is here for you. FLP provides you with seasoned, experienced attorneys that handle your criminal and civil matters as a result of you protecting yourself. FirearmsLegal.com provides its members with uncapped attorney's fees, bail bond protection, and coverage in all 50 states. We are not a reimbursement plan. You can access uncapped attorney's fees for as low as $10 a month. Firearms Legal members are provided with educational services, training videos, and access to our vast national attorney network. While you're protecting yourself, let Firearms Legal protect you.
Listen up, folks. This is important. There are plenty of legal protection services out there, but none will protect you as well as Firearms Legal Protection. This is the one I use and the only one I recommend. Visit firearmslegal.com/Midwest Tactical and protect your family now. Okay, folks, welcome back to the Home Defense Show. This is your host, Skip Coryell. We are speaking with Jim Keller from Big Buck Registry, a fantastic podcast that you need to check it out. Now, Jim, before we go too far, tell people how they can listen to Big Buck Registry.
Well, we are a podcast, so you can get us on any of your normal podcast routes. We're on Stitcher, the Apple Podcast app, YouTube, and we also have a Facebook page if you just want to search Big Buck Registry and join that group. And then finally, we also have a web, www.bigbuckregistry.com. So definitely check us out. And give us a listen.
All right. Fantastic. That's a good way to get excited about the pending opening day here in Michigan. All right. Now, Jim, there's I get emails from, the Michigan DNR, all the time. And they sent out a bunch of, there were some rule changes, some changes on baiting. There's all kinds of things about EHD and bovine TB and the areas where they have special hunts. Can you kind of give us the synopsis on what's going on with the DNR and all the new things they have?
Yeah, so a number of years ago we were hit with EHD, which decreased our numbers significantly, and they seem to have rebounded, I think, pretty well at this point. And then the new issue is obviously the CWD that they found kind of in the center part of the state, and now there is this CWD management zone that includes Calhoun, Clinton, Eaton, Gratiot, Hillsdale, Ingham, Ionia, Isabella, Jackson, Kent, Mecosta, Montcalm, Muskegon, Newaygo, Ottawa, and I think Shiawassee County is also in that. And so there's some different rules around that as far as baiting, and also some of the limits are increased significantly as they try and kind of control the spread of it. Whether or not that's going to work, I think other states have tried similar things with mixed success, but unfortunately in those areas, I think that we're going to see numbers decrease in the short term as they try and reduce the population and limit the spread. Now, you and I both live and hunt around Berry County, which is kind of in the middle of all that, and somehow we're not named in that. This year we can still use minerals and bait, but as of January 31st, that is all going to go away until further notice. So just make sure folks are aware of that and that they're following the rules, because it's going to change quite a bit. There's also been a ban on urine-based lures, except for those that are approved by the Archery Trade Association, and I think you can get on their website and find out. But I think it's going to have more to do with natural lures are going to be controlled and not allowed versus some of the synthetic stuff.
Yeah.
It's just going to be an interesting year, especially in those areas, and probably an interesting few years as we kind of watch how this kind of all plays out. Now, outside of that issue, it looks like our populations are doing pretty well. I know personally when I look at my cameras and I'm out on my property, I see lots of does at least moving around. I've noticed a significant increase in coyotes this year, and I know they kind of cycle a little bit, and I have a friend that traps them, and he's indicated that he has also noticed that numbers are up, and it is a cycle. They'll go through different disease phases, and the numbers will go down, and how he judges it is if he starts trapping a significantly higher number of males than females or females than males, then something's up, and that's how it's been for the last few years. But if it's kind of equal, that he's killing or trapping an equal number of males and females, that shows that their herd is kind of in balance and not disease prone. So the one thing I will say is a lot of the ones that I'm seeing, the coyotes that I'm seeing on pictures, a lot of them look like younger ones. So I just think they had a pretty good year this year. And I do hunt them a little bit and try and limit their effect on my deer population, but there's plenty of them out there, and I'm not sure that I've made much of a dent in them at this point.
Yeah, well, I kind of feel like we're on an island right now. I live in Allegan County, so I hunt in Allegan and Berry County, and we're surrounded by this zone where supposedly, all these diseases are, and that's a bit disconcerting. But hey, it is what it is, and hopefully they can get it, tampered down so that, they keep it in control. Because, boy, I remember when that EHD hit, what was it, 10 years ago or something like that? Man, geez, if you could kick up a deer, I'd eat it raw with its fur and skin and all. But it was really bad. But and the smell, I remember the smell out there near the rivers, the EHD, what is that, epizootic hemorrhaging disease? Nasty.
So they'd all seek water, and when they'd get there, that's usually where they died because they were trying to control the fever that it was causing. So yeah, I remember those days as well, just some nasty areas.
But hopefully that's behind us now. and we can go out and we can fill our freezer. Now, Jim, for you, are you a rack hunter? Do you hunt for antlers, or do you hunt for meat?
To be honest with you, my whole family hunts, so I have become kind of the rack hunter. Everybody else, my son, I like him to get the experience of, when I was talking earlier about drawing on a deer, that was advice I gave him, is to practice, because even though you may be holding out for the bigger of the two bucks, you want to be ready and have practiced a little bit before you get that first shot. So I think that given that there's plenty of deer taken by our family, that I kind of hold out for the bigger one and hope that maybe if the smaller one goes by, he'll walk by my son's stand or my dad's stand or whatever. Not that I disrespect or don't think that any buck is a trophy, or any doe for that matter, but I'm hoping that if I don't take it, that somebody else in the family or on the property or one of the neighbor's kids will get it. So that's kind of why I hold out, and I get plenty of practice, gutting and skinning and processing deers through everybody else. So sometimes maybe I'm just lazy, but I'm more of a horn hunter at this point, just because I've got other people that are that I'd rather see get the deer.
Tell us about your best buck.
Best buck. Well, that was one of my November 10th bucks, and this was back in the early 2000s, that time of year where I was seeing bucks. They were coming through, and this guy came through, and the story about him is not that he had the biggest rack I've ever seen or ever shot, but something had happened to him where his rack on one side had been, I don't know if he was hit by a car or what, but the tip of his main beam rested on his nose.
Wow.
On one side, and then the other was perfectly normal. And so I was sitting up in my tree, and he came through, and I saw him at a distance, and I could see something was up, but I just thought maybe he was just not a very evenly framed rack. And as he got closer, I started to see this, and I could see that on the side where his antler was bent, his eye was also swollen shut, and there was kind of a big growth there from the bone from his antler and his skull. So as it turns out, he ended up walking right to me, and he presented a good shot, and I took it, and he didn't go too far. But I'll just never forget the realization that I went through when he was coming up, and not thinking that this was going to be a very interesting looking deer, and not thinking he was going to present a shot, and then all of a sudden he made a beeline towards me, and then as I got closer, that rack is just the most unique thing that I've ever seen, at least that I've taken. I guess I've seen other ones in pictures, but yeah, he's a neat rack. I did a skull mount on him, so I've got a kind of a European-looking mount, and that helps kind of preserve just what was going on there, where you can see the extra bone in his skull and the way that horn is bent around.
That sounds interesting. I'm kind of a little bit of both. There are a certain number of deer that I have to shoot to fill the freezer. So I like shooting, big does. But, you have to admit, when you know that there's a big buck out there on your property, you've seen it on trail camera or whatever, you've seen it off in the distance, man, you just, it makes the hunting season just more exciting, because at any given moment, it's like, oh, I've been out here for 3 hours, but in the next 15 seconds, you could hear a twig snap. And it could be that big buck that you've been seeing. There's one last year. I saw the deer that I wanted to shoot last year after I shot my second buck. And, it's after dark, and I'm gutting this deer out. It was a 7-point. And, I heard a big branch break, and I had my headlamp on, and so I looked up, and like 10 yards away, there's this huge buck, really big mass, high antlers, chocolate brown rack, and he's looking right at me. And how did he know that I didn't have another buck tag. I just don't understand it. It's like
exactly.
But you know what?
But he did.
Yeah, and he's probably still out there. So I'm waiting. I probably won't see him first part of the season, but maybe during the rut, maybe I'll see him. And it's just exciting knowing that at any given point, any second, they could step out and your hunt could go from super dull to, hey, I'm wetting my pants here. So I just love that. I love that, Jim.
Yeah, me too.
Well, okay, Jim, it looks like we're going to have a good season here in Michigan. I think the numbers are good. Everyone that I'm talking to tells me that they're still seeing good bucks, and I'm expecting a good Michigan deer season. Any information you have that says that we're not going to have a good season?
Nope, nothing at all. I think that the numbers look like they're up, and we're definitely rebounding from the plague that hit us years ago. And so, everybody get out there and get your time in and take a doe or two, keep that number in balance, and wait for that big guy to come through, or whatever else you consider to be a trophy.
And don't forget to wear your safety vest when you're up in your tree stand, of course, and practice before you go out there. I hate to hear stories about people wounding deer and people falling out of their tree stand. I heard a story just a few weeks ago. I believe it was in Oregon, either Oregon or Washington, where a guy was hanging in his stand for 2 days before they found him.
Yep. Yeah, actually, so on the Big Buck Registry, I do the deer news.
Yeah.
And so each week I research topics and news related to deer. So I just actually wrote the material last night for this week's edition, and I'll record it tonight. But, 70-year-old guy. He was out hunting by himself. He did have his dogs in camp with him, but family wasn't expecting him back anytime soon, and so he was out there hunting, and he somehow fell from his tree stand. And they have, if you go look it up online, there's pictures of him that they took while they were rescuing him. And so he was right up by the stand itself. It must have fallen out somehow, and he must have had a safety harness on or something kept him up there, but he ended up upside down, and he hung like that for 2 days.
Oh, gosh.
Another hunter found him, and so they got him free, but in the process of doing that, as soon as the blood started flowing through his body, it sounds like his heart stopped. So they resuscitated him, and he's in a medically induced coma. And I have not seen any recent updates other than to know that he's in the coma. So there are devices that people can wear to not only have a safety vest when they get up there, but have, use one of the safety ropes as you're getting up. I've started using those. Admittedly, I wasn't real keen on the idea initially, but as I've gotten to use them, they really are no problem at all. It does not, they're not noisy, they don't get in the way, and it's such a much safer approach, and now there's devices that you can use that will even let you down if anything should happen to you while you're up. So, yeah, don't overlook the safety, folks. I started doing it to set a good example for my son, but have just gotten so used to it. It's just part of my routine. I put that safety vest on under my clothes. When I get out there, I hook onto my rope, and that knot slides right up with me. This year, I'm also going to start using a safety device so that if I happen to fall, it will lower me down to the ground rather than, potentially hanging there. I don't typically hunt someplace where people don't know where I'm at or don't expect me home at a certain time, so if something did happen, at least somebody would know to come and look. But take all those safety things. You buy one, it'll last you years and years. Your cost per season is a couple of bucks just to have that thing, and it could save your life.
Yeah. Well, I remember, decades ago when I first started hunting out of a tree, when they first made it legal here, most people didn't wear safety vests. I'm not even sure they had them yet. They would maybe they would tie off with a rope or something. But I started using a safety vest after the first time. I'm sitting up there in my tree, and I'm like 25 feet off the ground, young and dumb, and I had my head in my hands, kind of, and I fell asleep. And I remember waking up, looking down. I didn't fall, but it's like I was asleep with my head in my hands 25 feet off the ground in a tree, and that just kind of scared me. And after that, I wear a safety vest every single time I go up now because it's just not worth spending the rest of your life in a wheelchair or dying on impact. So, boy, safety above all else, folks. Okay.
I agree.
Jim, good luck to you on October 1st and throughout the whole season, the lull and the rot and everything else. I hope you get that really big buck of your entire life this season. So, Jim, good luck and thank you for being on the Home Defense Show.
Thanks, Skip. It was my pleasure. Good luck out there.
All right. Again, folks, you can go to BigBuckRegistry.com or you can listen to them on Stitcher or probably iTunes. Any place you can get a podcast, you can listen to Big Buck Registry podcast, and you will really enjoy that show. It's very exciting and educational. All right, folks, we got a 2-minute break coming up. While we are away, go ahead and check out our sponsors, firearmslegal.com/Midwest Tactical, and then elitefirearms.us. And when you come back, we will do the wrap-up, and I will tell you what I really think about deer hunting. This is Skip Coryell on the Home Defense Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Welcome to my dad's Home Defense Radio show. You're gonna love it.
Hey folks, I want to tell you about my book, Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book. More and more people across the country are seeing the dangers in society and are deciding to carry concealed to protect themselves and their families. My new book lays it out step by step. It'll teach you how to protect and defend the ones you love. Get the benefit of 17 years of teaching experience and a lifetime of training for this important role in society and in your family. You can get Civilian Combat real easy. Just go to Amazon.com, search on Skip Coryell Civilian Combat, and it'll pop right up there. Don't put it off any longer. Get Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book by yours truly, Skip Coryell.
This is Colonel Danny Gillum. I host Frontlines of Freedom, a weekly syndicated military talk radio show. One of my co-hosts is Skip Coryell, the host of this show. We cover things that impact military and veteran communities, and we do it from the veteran's perspective. The show is broadcast across the nation and is also available as a podcast on our website, frontlinesoffreedom.com. Please join Skip and me weekly on Frontlines of Freedom.
This is Skip Coryell from the Home Defense Show, and I want you to have the very best handgun that money can buy. And that's why we recommend you visit Larry Jackson at Elite Firearms and Training. As a concealed carry instructor, I see people every week out on the range with guns they can't shoot properly because they didn't know what to buy. That will never happen at Elite Firearms and Training. Larry Jackson will personally fit you with your very own personal defense pistol. So call Larry Jackson today at 616-299-8715 or visit elitefirearms.us.
Skip, it's time for the Armed America Report. What do you have for us?
All of us here at Frontlines of Freedom want our listeners to get trained and get armed in that order. We fully support the right to keep and bear arms for all law-abiding families, and we encourage you to find out about the laws governing use of deadly force in your state and follow them to letter. And of course, don't forget to follow the rules of safety and common sense whenever you're carrying a firearm to protect the ones you love. What's the story this week, Colonel?
Well, in the sleepy town of Biwai, Mississippi, a teen was faced with a life-or-death situation. The boy was home alone when an uncle, armed with a hatchet, threatened the teen's life. The 16-year-old used a hunting rifle to protect himself, shooting his uncle in the chest and killing the man. Quote, "My son defended himself," the teen's mother said. "It could have been the other way around. It could have been my son that I'm picking up and having to bury, but it wasn't." The youth is not being charged, as the investigation revealed he fired in self-defense. The boy's mother said that this was not the first time the uncle had acted in a menacing manner toward her family, but it was the last time.
Thanks, Colonel. This is both an interesting and a disturbing story simply because, according to FBI crime stats, 53% of the people murdered are murdered by someone they know. That means that the person most likely to kill you is someone who lives close to you or works with you, or, as in this case, is someone you've known your entire life. This poses some very unusual challenges. On the one hand, many people struggle with the very concept of killing another person, even if that person is a stranger and is also trying to kill them. But imagine for a moment how much greater the struggle would be if you knew the person, or perhaps even loved that person. There was recently a double murder in my hometown where the son killed both parents with gunshots to the head at close range, He then turned the gun on himself and ended his own life. Many of us spend a lot of time preparing ourselves to defend against attackers, but it's almost always assumed that the person who tries to hurt us will be a stranger, but that's just not always true. I'm sure that the 16-year-old boy in this case had to struggle with shooting and killing his own uncle. In this story, as in many like it, the family had some warning signs. The uncle had caused problems before. Indeed, there was a history of it. I think most of us have at least one person in our family or our acquaintance that makes us a little bit uncomfortable whenever we're around them. You know the type. They don't seem to know what's appropriate, or they go out of their way to look and act differently than everyone else around them. While this can be a simple cry for help, it can also serve as a warning to all of us. But here's the bottom line. As tough as it is to shoot a stranger, it's even tougher to shoot someone you know or even love. Here are some tips to help. 1, be careful who you let into your life. When you let crazy people into your life gets crazy. That's a Coryell self-defense rule I live by. 2, always trust your gut. If someone doesn't seem quite right, then back away and limit contact with that person. And 3, prepare yourself mentally for an attack by someone you care about. Get it reasoned out in your own mind. You don't want to do it, but when it's your life or theirs, then make it be theirs. You can work it out in therapy later on, but if you're dead, it won't matter. Our thoughts and prayers go out to this young man. He'll struggle emotionally with what he did, but he had no choice. Frontlines of Freedom is behind you all the way. You did the right thing, kid. You had no choice, and you shouldn't doubt or second-guess your action.
Well said, Skip.
Okay, folks, welcome back to the Home Defense Show. This is your host, Skip Coryell. All good stuff with Jim Keller from Big Buck Registry. Make sure you check them out, bigbuckregistry.com, or just go to Facebook and search on Big Buck Registry and find out about their podcasts and all the things they can teach you about deer hunting. All right, that was fun, but now it's time in the show where I tell you what I really think. And today I want to talk about crazy far-left liberals. Is it just me, or is the far left crazier than they used to be? I mean, certainly they were crazy when Obama was in office, but it just seems like since Trump's been in office, they've gone off the deep end. It's not just crazy talk, but it's also crazy, if not even violent, actions on their part that have me wondering about them. To a certain extent, I understand their emotional upheaval. Think back to when Obama won the White House. And then later, when he started to implement all of his far-left agenda. Remember Obamacare? How did that even happen? We thought for sure, that he was going to succeed in upending the Second Amendment, if not the whole Constitution. And how did the far right respond? Well, we marched peacefully all over the country. That's when I personally organized the Second Amendment March and when all the Tea Parties were all the rage. Remember that? But have you noticed a difference between the Tea Parties and Antifa? The Tea Partiers were always on their best behavior. They cleaned up after themselves, and for the most part, the Tea Party was made up of people who raised families and actually worked for a living. But the far-left rallies, they haven't been like that, have they? They set things on fire, they tip over police cars, they pull down their pants, and they outright crap in the streets, in public. And if they're lucky enough to find a lone Trump supporter, then it's like a gift from Satan, because they pounce on him or beat him to a pulp. One of the differences between a far left and a far right rally is the body count and the amount of property damage. Let me give you a case in point from my personal life. I was teaching a concealed carry class last week, and as I walked out of the building, I saw a man coming in my direction across the parking lot. He was walking this big white dog on a leash. So I nodded and I said, "Hello." He stopped and he looked at me. I stopped and I looked at him. And the next words out of his mouth kind of surprised me. He said, "Are you a pastor?" I said, No. And he said, "Good, because I hate pastors." That kind of confused me because I had no idea why he was telling me this. I said, "Okay, I know there's a church that meets downstairs here in my classroom, but I think they're moving now because they found their own building. This man, he was about 65 years old. He said, "Good, I hate that man, and now I won't have to look at his ugly face anymore." I was smiling because I didn't know what else to do, but hey, I didn't quite know what to say to that, so I just kept my mouth shut. And then I faced my truck, and he asked me, "I suppose you like Trump too?" And by now, I'm starting to get a little upset, so I turned to the man, and with as much love and admiration as I could muster, I said, "Sir, I absolutely love Donald Trump." I shouldn't have said that because the poor man went crazy. He started swearing and screaming and telling me how stupid I was. Of course, I was open carrying that day because of the class, and I was on my way out to the gun range, and I thought to myself, is this man crazy? He must see the gun on my hip. Why is he acting like this? But he just kept swearing and yelling at me. After a few seconds, I just shrugged and said to him, "Sir, you are a very rude man." That didn't calm him down at all. I started to get into my truck, and he just kept launching insult after insult, which I ignored. He walked away, and I drove away, and that was the end of it. But that was the saddest thing to happen to me all week long. After I thought about it for a while, I started to feel sorry for the guy. I mean, there's no way he could be happy and act like that to a total stranger. And now that I think about it, I don't recall him smiling during the whole incident. You know, I'm old enough to remember the Bill Clinton years, how we were forced to listen to him lying to us. Remember those infamous words, "I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Monica Lewinsky"? He lied to all of us. And I certainly remember Barack Obama. Just the sound of that man's voice to this day makes my blood curdle. But never, not once, did I ever go out and insult strangers because of it. I never wanted anyone to die or get hurt, and I certainly didn't swear at them and beat them up. I just wanted both those guys out of office as quickly as possible, and I worked hard to make it happen, in both cases. That's rational and just part of the American way, the political process. But this new left we have is not like the old left. Democrats seem to be going through a fundamental change right now, and it's downright crazy. It's like this crazy menopause or midlife crisis that they're going through. They're going through a fundamental change, and it's scary. I think a lot of them have gone off the deep end and have become downright dangerous, physically dangerous. Politics is important, but it's not my life, and it's certainly not worth getting violent about. I think that maybe we're coming to a point in America where we have to factor the far left insanity into our own personal protection plan, because these people are dangerous, physically dangerous. They're attacking people all over the country, and maybe we need to change the way we deal with them. As usual, we should always try to disengage from them whenever possible, watch out for them, heightened state of awareness, all of that stuff. And I always do those things anyways. On top of that, I don't wear pro-Trump t-shirts anymore or anything political on the right. I tend to give up my First Amendment rights simply to make it through the day without making these people go crazy. It's like if I don't do that and these people attack me, I'll have to defend myself. And I've got a gun. And I don't want to kill anybody. Certainly not over something as silly and stupid as politics. So here's the thing. I think all of us should just take a deep breath, step back for a moment, and remember that life used to be fun. No matter who was in the White House. Let's just calm down, relax, live and let live. And that, folks, is what I really think. All right. I just had to get that one off my chest, folks. But it's just crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. I hope it gets better. But hey, we have to survive this craziness, right? It impacts our everyday life now. So be careful out there, folks. Be careful who you talk to. Be careful what you say to people. All right. We are out of time, folks. We've had a great time. We've got the deer hunt pregame show over and done with. And And it's all left except the hunting. And I'll be doing that on October 1. Okay, folks, that about wraps it up for this week's episode of the Home Defense Show. Until next week, remember your purpose in life is to find something greater than yourself and serve it. Always remember God, family, country, in that order. It's important how you live, but it's equally important how you die. Your family and the ones you love need your protection, so train, always train, stay alert, stay alive. Until next week on the Home Defense Show, this is your host, Skip Coryell. God bless you, God bless your family, and God bless America.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Home Defense Show. Now, get out there and protect the ones you love. We'll see you next week with more of the best in home defense.
Bye-bye, boys! Have fun storming the castle!